All right. And for our final division preview, we have the Atlantic Division. I would say this is the best division in hockey.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that.
I strongly agree with Jeff, but I know John does not care for that take, maybe because his favorite team isn't in that division.
I don't know if it's about my favorite team. I like the Central, but whatever. I mean, they're both great divisions.
Okay, so if we go bottom up, I'm sorry to say this, Mark, but Montreal Canadiens, will they be in last?
They might be, although I don't think it's a guarantee. I think they've really gotten closer to that pack of bottom teams that are on the way up. I think Montreal will improve upon the point total they put up last year. I think they get somewhere into the mid to low 80s and maybe be in playoff contention until maybe March-ish.
They did have some unfortunate news, their big acquisition of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Laine, he took a really bad knee-to-knee hit. Looks like he's going to be out for a while. Very, very unfortunate. This is a guy, I have a bit of a connection to. He played for the Jets for a little while. I was kind of gunning for him. This was a good chance for him to sort of restart his career. Unfortunately, off to a very bad start for Patrick Laine.
It looked like he might be out for the season. Now they're saying 2 to 3 months, so actually not quite as bad. If they can get off to a decent start, that would be a nice guy to get halfway through the season.
For sure.
They've got some great young players. You'd love to see some progress out of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Slakowski. But Mark, there was another X factor that you had on forward.
Yeah, well, for me, that is Kirby Dach. Now, he played one game in one period last year. He looks great. He looked like one of their best players out of camp. And yeah, that was devastating. If they can get him back and have a nice second line to support that first line, then Montreal's going to be a lot more dangerous offensively.
How about some of their young defensemen?
Yeah, so the talk of camp and talk around the league really has been about Lane Hudson and how dynamic he's been with the puck. He, I think, could end up taking over that power play by the end of the year and making Montreal a lot more dangerous with the man advantage.
Yeah, for sure. But they still have Matheson there. I mean, he's a solid presence. He had a great year last year. So, I mean, it's not like they need Hudson to step up into that role immediately.
Yeah, a real shame about Ryan Bacher getting hurt.
Yeah, you know, our top 5 pick from a couple of years back looks like he's going to miss pretty much the entire season. He wasn't expected to make the NHL this year, but that's still a lost year of development.
Could Logan Mailloux make the team?
You know, I don't think Logan Mailloux is quite ready yet. He's got a lot of the tools, but the hockey sense and just that making that quick play under NHL pressure, it's not quite there yet.
They do have Wi-Fi back there. Man, he's been going crazy during the preseason. Yeah. John, what do you think of their goalie tandem?
I mean, Sam Montembeault, I think he had a solid year. I think they're going to expect more of the same from him. Caden Primo is the backup, very, very unproven, so I think they're going to be relying pretty heavily on Sam Montembeault.
Yeah, I'm not high on Primo, but I think Montembeault is actually one of the more underrated goalies in the league. Watch out for him as a potential Team Canada goaltender at this 4-team challenge later in the year.
Oh, interesting. So what do we think of the general prospects for this team?
Yeah, not a playoff contender. I think the loss of Laine is going to hurt for the first half of the year. But I think better things are to come in Montreal, and Marty St. Louis is going to have this team playing an entertaining brand of hockey. They'll be competitive.
And let's move west, just over the river, to the Ottawa Senators. I am so happy that they have found a new home to play out of. So that's great news if you're a Sens fan. What do we think about this team going into the year?
Well, there's some other great news. They have perhaps acquired their number one goaltender, long sought after. Linus Ullmark is now an Ottawa Senator, and I do think he's really going to help solidify things on the back end for this team between the pipes. I mean, this is a guy, he's won a Vezina Trophy. He's played on a good team with the Boston Bruins, but he's also played on a bad team with the Buffalo Sabres. So I do think they're going to be high hopes for Linus Ullmark in Ottawa.
And Mark, what about the two young studs?
Yeah, so Captain Brady Tkachuk, I think that he's definitely going to have his best year. He's a physical force and just one of those guys that plays with emotion and power. And Tim Stützle, coming off a disappointing year, the talent is there. I think that he could easily score 80, 90 points this year.
They did have some injury problems last year with Josh Norris.
Every year.
Can he stay healthy? Obviously, Shane Pinto, he had the suspension, so a lot of eyes will be on them.
Yeah, I'm not really high on either player. Norris, it's not a matter of skill. It's just a matter of he's had injuries to his shoulders over and over and over again. I'm not really sure if he can stand up to a full year of wear and tear.
They're bringing back the veteran, Claude Giroux. who's fit in really nicely
Yes.
there. They brought in David Perron.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll help out with the depth. But what about their defense?
Well, I mean, obviously, Jake Sanderson, they're hoping for him to really emerge as that number one guy. A little bit surprised they moved on from Jacob Chikrin. I thought he might be a nice piece there, but alas, no more. Thomas Chabot is still there, of course. I don't really think he's going to pan out as the number one that they would like him to be. After that, I do think it's a little thin.
I like Artem Zub's physical presence, but I get what you mean. It's not really a very deep defense core. Some guys like Brandstrom have moved on that just didn't work out. So yeah, Ottawa could be in trouble as far as keeping pucks out of their net despite adding Allmark.
Can't wait to see if Travis Green can finally get this team over the hump.
Yeah, it's been a long time for Ottawa. They would really love to make the playoffs. It seems like every year there's some optimism. This year is no exception. Is this the year they finally get there? Remains to be seen.
Let's move on to Motown and the Detroit Red Wings. This team came within 1 point of the playoffs.
Yeah, that was rough for them. It was a hard loss for them to not make it. I guess we have to ask, what is the state of the Yzer plan right now?
Kind of mixed. Mark, what do you think?
I don't love it. And this is something we've talked about on the show before. I think that they peaked a little bit too early, kept bringing in these veteran guys, some guys on the downside of their career. You look at their D-core, for example. It's made up of veterans who just don't have their A game anymore. Guys like Jeff Petrie, Ben Sherrod, Eric Gustafson. These are not top options on the blue line. So other than Moritz Seider, who is a stud, I don't see a lot of hope on their blue line.
I think that's pretty fair, but if you look at their forward group, I think there's a little bit more optimism there. Their top line, I love Dylan Larkin.
Dylan Larkin is driving the bus. Hopefully he stays healthy.
For sure.
And also Patrick Kane. Can he stay healthy?
I mean, I think if he's healthy, you could sort of count on him for close to a point per game. I think that's probably fairly fair to say.
That's a big if at this stage of his career, though. I think the guys you can rely on the wing are more guys like Lucas Raymond, just freshly signed to his big deal.
Big deal.
He's still young, very young. Yeah,
he could become the star forward that they need to kind of support Larkin. And Alex DeBrincat has a red hot start to the year and then kind of fades. He needs to be more consistent this season.
Yes, he does need to be a little more consistent, as does the whole team. I think they just need this group to gel. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if they really have the pop to really put themselves a little bit further in the standings than they were last year.
And can they rely on their goaltending? I don't know what's going on with their depth chart in Detroit.
Yeah, they've got quantity, but do they have quality?
They brought in Cam Talbot, who was very effective last year in LA. They also have Husso and Lyon. I mean, they even have Jack Campbell. Sebastian Costa's also there.
Yeah.
Who's going to be playing?
Yeah, it's a big question. I would say Talbot probably has the inside track to start the year, but I mean, that doesn't mean much. Husso is a pretty serviceable option. Lyon has been proven to be okay in stretches in his NHL career, so who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, as we always say, goaltenders are voodoo. It's hard to predict, but they do have an embarrassment of options. I just don't feel that confident in any one of those guys.
Yeah, the pressure is on in Detroit. They have to make the playoffs this year.
Okay, now we have to move on to the team that I'm always excited about. They always let me down, but guess what, guys? I'm pumped up again for the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay.
I know.
Come on, Lindy Ruff. You got to break this drought.
Yeah, it's a tough team to be excited about. However, it's not like there is no cause for optimism there. A lot of players, I think, need to bounce back from some disappointing seasons last year.
Yeah, 2 years ago, they had that electric offense, and then regression. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Dylan Cousins.
Yeah, these are all guys that are young. If they stay healthy, I think all of these guys could be front end forwards. I mean, I think that we could see Thompson get back to an 80, 90-point pace. Dylan Cousins was a lot better in the second half. I think that he could also be threatening a point per game. And JJ Peterka, he looks like a solid winger. Nice replacement for Jeff Skinner on that top line to go along with Alex Tuck, who's another guy. I think that if he's healthy, he's a dangerous player.
Yeah, and I also think they would like to see some improvement from Jack Quinn, another young guy that I do think has a little bit more to provide offensively for this team.
They did bring in some veterans, Ryan McLeod, Jake Lafferty, Jason Zucker, and your buddy James Reimer.
Yeah, Reimer.
Mark?
Reimer. No, so why are we talking about James Reimer? Like,
Yeah.
this is not. He's their third best goalie at this point.
Yeah, probably. Although, I mean, obviously, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is their guy.
Yeah, he's got the contract,
Yes,
right?
he's got
Yes.
the contract. He proved himself to be the number one last year. Devin Levi is still there. He's a young goalie. They take a long time to develop. So he may still have a little bit more in store for this team.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm big on Devin Levi. It's nice to have UPL sign long term, though. But the thing that really excites me about this team is their big pillars on defense.
Yeah.
Both former first overall picks, Rasmus Dahlin, the brand new captain, and of course, Owen Power. Watch out for these guys, and Bowen Byram, of course, be a nice compliment to them as well. So I think that's going to be the strength of the team if they make a run for the playoffs this year.
Okay, well, why don't we move up in this division a little bit to the old guard, the Tampa Bay Lightning? I think this is a team that is still solidly a playoff team. Maybe it's taking a bit of a hit. Where do we think these guys are at?
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable that they have one of the best goalies in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yes, and hopefully he's healthy for the entire season. Remember, last year he missed the start.
Yeah.
They still have big Victor Hedman back there on D.
Yeah, and with Sergachev being shipped out of town, he's going to be asked to play more of an offensive role this year. But they did bring back an old face on D.
They sure did. Ryan McDonough is back.
And they also brought in J.J. Moser, a young, promising defenseman. But I do think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Steven Stamkos is no longer captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's a huge change.
Yeah, it was a bold move, but rest assured that money was not saved as they spent it on Jake Gensel, who is probably the most sought-after free agent on the market. I think he can provide maybe a 40-40 season for them up front.
And while their depth has been kind of whittled away, Braden Point, what a season he had last year.
Yeah, I mean, he has really come through as an offensive dynamo, breaking 90 points. Yeah, they can't expect much more from him. Obviously, Anthony Cirelli providing the depth that is needed there. But I do think they do have some problems depth-wise offensively, don't they?
Brendan Hagel had a nice year
He
last
sure
year.
did. He sure did. But beyond that, what do they got?
Well, that Nikita Kucherov guy, he's a pretty good hockey player, they
yes.
say.
Yeah,
you know,
decent.
he's one of the best in the world.
Decent.
He was runner-up for the Hart Trophy, so I mean, I think he's still got a few more elite years left in him.
For sure.
Yeah,
No
Tampa
question.
Bay last year just had elite special teams. But I guess the big question is the window still open for this team?
Yeah, that's tough because in that division, this is the fourth best team according to the Rod Langway Fan Club podcast. And
Yeah.
it's going to be tough. If they don't get one of those top seeds, they're going to have a really difficult first-round
Maybe
matchup.
windows open, blinds closed.
Yeah, I think there should be playoff hockey in Tampa Bay this year, but I just don't see a long playoff run with this kind of depth problem they have.
Next up, let's talk about the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, well, the big headline in Beantown is Jeremy Swayman is still yet to sign.
I can't believe it. When we did our summer show about a month ago, I thought for sure he would be signed.
Yeah, and it's getting ugly.
Yeah.
Cam Neely comes out the other day in the media and says there's 64 million reasons why he should have signed by now. Swayman's agent denies that they've actually discussed a number like that. When things like this go public, I don't know, this could draw out for a while.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Vancouver with Corey Schneider and Roberto Luongo because they had such an embarrassment of riches in goaltending last season. Now we'll see what they got. I mean, at least they have Jonas Corposalo. He was a guy, he played great in LA 2 years ago. Last year in Ottawa, not so much. So we'll see what they can get out of him this year. He is going to be the goalie for game one. So yeah, go Jonas.
Last year, we made a lot to do with their centers, right? They had Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, who actually performed pretty well, but their big free agent signing was Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, so seems like the perfect fit for Boston, plays a good two-way game, got a bit of grit in his game as well. The question is, though, at his age, are his best years behind him? Or can he have a revival in Boston?
I mean, of course, we would be remiss to be talking about Boston and not mention David Pastrnak. I mean, this guy is an all-world goal scorer. He put the Toronto Maple Leafs out of the playoffs on a beautiful goal.
Jeff, you remember that
Beautiful goal. And of course, Brad Marchand, the captain, he has had, I think, 3 surgeries in the offseason, but he does seem primed to be back for this season.
Yeah, but at what level, John?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good question. So what kind of play can we expect from Brad Marchand?
They did lose some of their forward depth. Obviously, Jake DeBrusk is gone. Heinen is gone. JVR is also gone.
Yeah, they do have Matthew Poitras, who's back healthy. He looked really good at the start of the last year before going down. Morgan Geeky's maybe a guy they can expect a bit more from this year as well. So Boston just always seems to find a way.
They always do. They really do. And what about their defense led by a former Rod Langway mustache winner?
Yeah, Charlie McAvoy, he is an excellent, excellent defender, but it doesn't end with him. I mean, I also love Hampus Lindholm. I really do think he's one of the most underrated depth defensemen in the league.
Speaking of underrated, I think Brandon Carlo would also fall in that category.
Agreed.
He's an excellent defenseman as well. And I really like this Mason Lohrei kid. I think that he could end up becoming a good top 4 defender for Boston.
And they added a physical force with Nikita Zadorov.
Such a Boston kind of guy.
Yes.
I think that'll be a good fit. I don't see him as a top 4 guy, but if he's your number 5, I think you're in pretty good shape.
He's probably a top 4 personality in the dressing room, though, right?
But there's only one Big Z.
Yeah, I mean, I think the surprising performances out of this team over the last couple of years have to be at least somewhat attributed to Jim Montgomery's coaching. This team always surprises, so I don't expect too much different this year.
All right, let's move on to everybody's favorite lovable losers, the team that constantly redefines insanity as they run it back once more with the core 4.
Yeah, as a Leaf fan, I'm just not sure what to make of this. I thought for sure they would shake it up, but all 4 are back.
Yeah, Mitchell Marner, there are some questions as to what his future is with this franchise still. But yeah, it seems like they're going to roll with him to start the season. What do we expect for this team? I know there's been some movement for sure.
Well, they have a new captain. Slightly surprised they took it away from Johnny T. But I do expect Austin Matthews to challenge for at least 50 goals.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much happens every year, but that doesn't really change the fact that when it comes down to it, the Leafs just can't get the job done. So what else has changed?
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest stories coming out of this team is change of coach. Sheldon Keefe out, Craig Berube in. This is a guy who may sacrifice some of the offensive punch of this team, play a more 200-foot game that is more geared towards playoff success.
They certainly have redone their blue line, bringing in Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Yanni Hakanpää.
Yeah, they all bring physicality and grit, but these are also guys who have a lot of miles on them. I just wonder how they're going to hold up in a long season.
Tyler Bertuzzi is gone. He's moved on to Chicago. Matthew Nyes is still around for another season. We'll see what he can offer. And Max Pacioretty, we'll see what he has left in the tank. He can still shoot the puck, we know, but he's been a while since he's contributed on any team. So interesting addition there.
Yeah, lots of talk about the bottom 6 in Toronto. I'm very curious about Nick Robertson. Hopefully he can find a regular playing role under Berube.
Yeah, the talent is there. I think he's going to get a shot getting decent line mates, but I don't know if that he's a Craig Berube kind of guy stylistically.
And how about in net?
Yeah, well, it looks like Joseph Woll's going to get a chance to run with the ball as a starter. But if he does falter, I think that Anthony Stolarz is a pretty serviceable goalie as well. So, again, goaltending, unpredictable, hard to say, but I don't hate their situation.
What do you think of Stolarz, John?
I think he's a decent backup. I do think Woll obviously has a bit of an injury history, so if he does falter, Stolarz can step in. And I don't think it's a bad option there.
Matt Murray also
Oh, the old Matt
What do you guys
Murray.
think about Matt Murray?
Yeah, Matt Murray. Okay.
Well, we all know that it's another big year in Toronto.
As always.
And regular season, let's face it, guys, it means nothing to this team. They have to win at least a round, preferably 2 or 3, ultimately the cup.
Oh, God. Here we go. Okay.
Dreaming,
Yeah.
buddy, you're dreaming.
Let's move on to the real biz.
Yes, the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers. Now, we know how hard it is to repeat.
Yeah.
Does this team have it in them?
I mean, I don't think it's completely insane to say that they could repeat, but this is not a team I would choose to repeat. They're great. They're great on paper. Everything's looking good for them, but it's so hard to do. What is the state of the Florida Panthers?
Well, they did take a hit on the blue line.
Yes, so they have said goodbye to a couple of key contributors, including Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Yeah.
But the biggest loss has got to be Brandon Montour. He got paid by Seattle. So they had to bring in a couple cheaper options. So they now have found Adam Boquist, who I think is a nice stab to take, a young defenseman who's had injury problems early in his career. He could turn out to be their new power play quarterback. I also don't mind the addition of Nate Schmidt as a bottom pairing guy.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about Schmidt. I mean, he was not really on the Jets roster for a lot of the year. Nice character guy. They are certainly going to be leaning a lot on Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad this season, who I think are great defenders.
And they are bringing back their big guns. Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, and what a season last year by Sam Reinhart.
Yeah, Reinhart was dynamo
Can't
last
see him
year.
potting 57 again this year, but if he can score 40, then I think the Panthers are going to be thrilled.
Yeah, the other Sam on the team, Sam Bennett. This guy is a guy who has a lot of sandpaper. He showed it in the playoffs.
He's a gamer.
And Anton Lundell, a guy who can play both sides of the puck. He's a difficult player to play against.
Now, we know that Sergei Bobrovsky is back on the case, but there are a lot of questions about who will be his backup this year.
Yes, well, I think the Panthers organization is hoping that Spencer Knight is ready to return full-time. He went through the player
Assistance program?
Yes, seems like that was successful. He played the entire year in the AHL last year, and he's in a training camp battle right now with Chris Treger to see who gets the backup role. But let's not forget that Spencer Knight was regarded as one of the top goaltending prospects in the NHL just a few years ago, so he could emerge as a nice option as the secondary goalie.
Yes, Paul Maurice did finally get his cup after a very, very long career. We'll see if he can do it again. I do like this team's chances to make the playoffs and to have a long run. We'll see if they can repeat.
All right, guys, we have reached the stage of the program where it's time to declare a champion.
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 A champion. A champion.
A champion.
A champion.
A champion.
Okay, so we are back now. John, last year you chose the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes, I was under the influence of some pretty heavy gorilla tranquilizers. I hope the listeners do remember. So a few regrets, I would say. This year, I am going to take a safer pick. I'm going to pick the Dallas Stars. I mean, I think this team, as we said, has a beautiful mix of veterans, young talent, great goaltender. They have all the pieces to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup.
All right, and Mark, last year you chose the Edmonton Oilers, your hometown.
Yeah, my hometown. They came within one game of getting it done. So I see no reason why I should change my pick. I think this year the Oilers get over that hump, much in the same way that Florida came so close and came right back and won the Cup. I think this is the Oilers' time. Last thing, they're going to make a push at the deadline. They're going to add at least one premium asset. They're going to use those draft picks, use those prospects. They're going for it this year.
All right, so Jeffy, the last couple of years, your Cup predictions have been pretty off the board. The Calgary Flames, the New Jersey Devils, neither of which made the playoffs. So I hope you got something as fun for us this year.
Yeah, who's getting the roll 'em in kiss of death this year?
Wow, thanks for reminding me. Hey, I do want to point out, last year, first round, I went 8 for 8.
That's true. That's true. After having gone over 8 during the COVID years. But yeah, you made up for that. So can you make
Who's
up for
keeping
this?
track here? Okay, I'm going to make this really easy. I'm going the Big Apple. I'm going to say the New York Rangers. I think this team is ready to take the next step.
Okay. Good pick. Good picks, everybody, including me.
Yeah, everything looks like a good pick at this juncture in the season. I am curious to see how things look at the quarter mark. We will be back to break it all down for you. So enjoy the first quarter of the season. We look forward to chatting once again soon.
Yes.
Love you.
I am so excited to have hockey back. This is awesome. I think we're going to have a fantastic year. Please join us. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you had yourselves a time.
Well, I hope you had yourselves a time. Hope you had yourselves a time. Hope you had time, yourselves a time. Hope you had yourselves a time. Well, I hope you had yourselves a time. Hope you had